the next two really common structures that we see all the time. We're going to talk about appositives and participial phrases. So an appositive is a really simple structure. It's got really no grammar. It's just a big noun. A good indicator that you can use an appositive is when you have something like which is or who is. The verb to be really means equals. Like he is a doctor. It really means he equals doctor. So we've got this really short construction that can work quite well. So an example of an appositive would be, my friend John is coming over to visit. My friend John. So John and my friend are exactly the same thing. Right? My car, a 2008 Corolla, is almost dead. Right? My car, a 2008 Corolla, is almost dead. My car and a 2008 Corolla are the same thing. I'm going to write that one down. My car, which is a 2008 Corolla, is almost dead. So this is this kind of scenario. Which is means equals, right? So we don't need to put that. We can just say my car, a 2008 Corolla, is almost dead. Okay. This means exactly the same as the preceding noun. We don't need to put any pronoun in front of it. We don't need to put any conjunction, no verb, no nothing. This is one noun after another. Okay, here's an example sentence. We're going to see this one in today's model response, but let's put it together right now. So the smallest group chose to volunteer. It was a mere 3,500 students. Okay. How would we put this together as a relative clause? We're going to take it in steps. Okay, Amar, how would we combine these two sentences using a relative clause?
The smallest group chose to volunteer, which was a mere of 3,000 students. Who was?
We can't do this because the rule for relative clauses is that the relative clause has to directly follow the noun that it's related to. Otherwise, it's called a misplaced modifier. Right, so that's the rule for a relative clause. You know how adjectives have to go right in front of the noun they're related to? Like if you say, I have a big dog, big has to go right before dog. You can't put it in another place. So the relative clause, it's the flip of that. It's the reverse. The relative clause needs to go right after the idea, the noun that it's related to. So where should we move this relative clause in this sentence?
Can I ask?
Before which chose to volunteer, the group which chose to volunteer.
Yes, so it's got to be, and then we need the other comma on the other side. So this is our relative clause. The smallest group, which was a mere 3,500 students, chose to volunteer. Mere is a good alternative for saying only, which was only 3,500 students, which was a mere 3,500 students chose to volunteer. So because the smallest group is the same as a mere 3,500 students, we don't need the relative clause business.
Okay. Group,
Yeah.
a mere 3,000 students chose to volunteer.
That's it. Right, and we can get rid of that. Okay, another example. 1/4 found part-time work. Those who found part-time work were the second biggest category.
Excuse
Okay.
me, sir.
Yep.
In this sentence, a mere 3,500 students, there's a and then there's students. So is it okay?
Yep.
Or
Yes, a mere means the same as only.
oh, okay, this is a full.
This is like a fixed expression. You use this together.
One word.
Yeah. This vacation package is a mere $1,500.
Okay. I was like treating it as a here. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you asked that. So here, 1/4 found part-time work. Those who found part-time work were the second biggest category. How would we put this together using a relative clause? Zubi.
1/4 found part-time work, and then comma. Those who found part-time work were second biggest categories.
Well, you'll have a run-on sentence if you do that. Remember, relative clauses are the ones that start with who, which, that.
Yeah. Those who found part-time work were in the biggest category?
Not exactly. So 1/4 found part-time work. Those who found part-time work is the same as 1/4, right?
Yeah. There's no need. That's I'm thinking this is a too long sentence. 1/4 found part-time work. If we remove this, then the second, which was second biggest category? With comma, which was second biggest category?
Good, but where should that go?
1/4 found part-time work, which was second biggest category.
Good.
One quarter found part-time work, second biggest category.
Yep, the second biggest category. Right, because part-time work is the second biggest category. They're exactly the same thing. Right. So that's a great structure. The grammar's super simple. There's really no grammar. This is just a noun phrase. This is just a noun phrase. Right. And it just goes directly after the noun that it's the same as. Okay, so that covers appositives. Participles and participial phrases, another very common construction. So participle is an active or passive adjective. Lots of adjectives don't have passive and active forms. If I say big dog, black dog, there's no active and passive for big and black. But some adjectives do have passive and active forms. For example, exciting and excited. You'd say the exciting performer, or you would say the excited crowd. Both of these are adjectives. Okay. When do you use the active form? When do you use the passive form? So if this is the cause, so in this case, the performer is the cause of the excitement, we use the ing form, the active form. The crowd is not the cause of the excitement. The crowd is the recipient of the excitement. Right? It's the performer is the cause, the crowd is the recipient. So we use the passive form. Boring and bored. The younger students especially love this example. The boring teacher, because the teacher causes the boredom. And then we have the bored students who experience the boredom. Okay. So a participial phrase. it can be thought of as a transformation of an independent, subordinate, or relative clause. So let's look at an independent clause transformation. So to do this, we delete the subject, we delete any auxiliary verbs, and we transform the verb into a participle. There's a couple of simple sentences. Sales fell. They dropped from 10,000 to 8,000 units per month. So you've got two independent clauses here. This is our first kind of transformation that we're going to look at. We're going to change this one into a participial phrase. Okay, so our formula, delete the subject. Just duplicate this. So we delete the subject, they. There's no auxiliaries in this example. And then we transform the verb into a participle. So to do so, there's only two possibilities. When you change a verb into a participle, it's either going to be the active form or it's going to be the passive form, regardless of the verb tense. So is dropped active voice or passive voice?
Active.
It's active voice, right. So what's the participle version of this?
Same.
Dropping. The ing participle is the active form of the participle. So this is not passive voice, this is past tense. Right? Regardless of the tense, whether this is present or past, it just changes into this version. Look at another example. The two bar graphs compare the destinations of graduate and postgraduate students in the UK in 2008. The graphs exclude those who found full-time employment. Okay, so we've got two simple sentences. They're both talking about the same thing, two bar graphs, the graphs again. So let's put them together. So according to the formula, we delete the subject because it's redundant. We've already got in the previous sentence. We don't have any auxiliaries. And we have this present simple verb. Now, is this verb in active voice or passive voice?
Active.
Is it active or passive? Sorry, I just didn't hear you.
Active.
It's active. So we just change it into the ing. Correct. There's no auxiliary. There's no nothing in these examples. Unlike for graduates, part-time work was a close second. It was chosen by 2,535.
Choosing by 2,535.
So in this case, is was chosen, is that active voice or passive voice?
Passive.
So that's right. So we have to use the third form. So here, again, we delete our subject. In this case, we have an auxiliary, so we drop the auxiliary. And chosen is the third form. So this is the passive participle, so we can leave it as is. So those were three examples of independent clauses changed into participial phrases. Now let's look at some subordinate clauses. The pattern is pretty much the same. Except with subordinate clauses, in many cases you can delete the subordinating conjunction, but in many cases you can leave it. So when you have while or after, often leave those. But in many other cases, drop the subordinating conjunction. And subordinating conjunctions are those words that begin subordinate clauses. Because, while, since, although. Let's look at this example. Because he was given a second chance, he did better on the exam. Okay, so our subordinate clause is here. Starts with because. So the pattern is delete the subordinating conjunction. So if it's because, we're going to get rid of it. Next, we delete the subject, delete auxiliaries, and transform the verb into a participle. So this was passive voice because he was given. So we can leave it. Third type, relative clause. And the pattern, again, delete the pronoun, delete auxiliaries, transform the verb into a participle. Let me get rid of this. 1/4 found part-time work, the second biggest category. So this is a more complex version of one we just saw, which was followed by a slightly smaller group who were classified as unemployed. Okay, so this is our relative clause. We actually have two relative clauses. We have this relative clause, and then we have this relative clause, which modifies the previous one. Okay, get rid of the pronoun, get rid of the auxiliary, which was followed by, that's passive voice, so we leave it. Who were classified, this is another example of passive voice. So we get rid of the relative pronoun, get rid of the auxiliary, and that's what we're left with. Now, this is not something that you have to do. This is for giving variety to your writing. For example, you can leave this. Okay. You could also leave the first relative clause and change the second one to a participial phrase. Okay, so it's all about choices. Let me just put those here, those alternatives.
Ian, what if we if we change the both? Is it wrong?
No.
Okay.
So the first alternative is we'll take out this one. Second one, take out this one. Third version, take out both. Okay, there's a couple more examples.
Ian, why not you put the comma after group here on the third one before the classified?
You can put a comma, you can leave the comma out.
Okay.
Very often, if a modifier comes afterwards, there's no comma. Like if you say in the morning, comma, I eat breakfast. If you flip it around and say I eat breakfast in the morning, you don't put that comma in.
Okay.
But with longer constructions, you might need to put the comma in to make things easier to understand for the reader. This is one of those situations where you should rely on your ears. And when you read it out loud, ask yourself, does pausing in that spot help clarify things for the reader? And if your ears tell you, yes, for sure, I find myself pausing there, it makes it clear, then you probably need a comma.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, 1/4 found part-time work, the second biggest category, followed by a slightly smaller group classified as unemployed. So I paused here. I paused here. So this is our appositive from earlier, but I didn't pause here. Okay, let's take a look at these ones. After they had completed their studies, the largest group, which represented about 40% of those who didn't go into full-time jobs, continued their education. I'm going to post this one in the chat. And I'd like you all to transform it. Okay, let's see what you do. And let's very quickly parse these. What is this thing called?
Which thing?
The structure that I've highlighted in this sentence, what do we call that?
Subordinate clause.
That's a subordinate clause. Very good. And what's this?
Relative clause.
Relative clause. Nice. And this is our independent clause here. Okay, so we'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, Chamri.
Yeah.
You changed this one to completed their studies. Now, is the verb active voice or passive voice?
It's active. It should be completing.
That's right. And in this case, if you delete after, the sentence loses sense in this case.
Okay.
I would leave the after in.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Lodi. When the when the subordinating conjunction is while or after
You have to keep it.
or before, you should probably keep it. Try both versions. And if getting rid of that subordinating conjunction changes the meaning or makes the meaning kind of unclear, then leave it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And then several other people made this change. So which represented, this is in active voice. So it becomes representing. Okay, so we did this one. In the second version, we did this one. And then the third version, you can do both. Good. Good, Dina. Amar. That's right. Okay, so this is about possibilities. If you do this, fantastic. If you do any of these, that's even better because it shows a greater variety of sentence structures. I like participial phrases because the grammar is actually pretty simple. Right? Regardless of the time in here, it just becomes this. Because this is a participle, it's not a verb, so it doesn't really have time information. The time information stays in the independent clause, continued their education. So that's your time information. Okay, we've got one more here. 1/4 found part-time work, the second biggest category, which was followed by a slightly smaller group who were classified as unemployed. So we've got a relative clause here. Oh, that's the same one we saw earlier, right? Yes, it is. Okay, good. So I don't have another example for you here. That's the same as this. Oh, okay. Any questions about this so far?
No. Oh, go ahead, Shamari.
Yeah, no, whenever I say, like, I get confused to say, I'm excited, I'm exciting. So how should we, like, put it in when talking, Ian, when it comes to myself? I'm excited over that, or I'm exciting over that?
It could be both. Both. If you're an exciting person, then you would say, I'm an exciting person. I'm exciting.
Okay.
But if you say, I'm excited,
On something, that I'm excited over something.
that's right. We're going on a trip. The kids are excited.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Anne.